Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Inshallah, tonight, by the grace of Allah Almighty, we will commence our new program of Hadith. And we have sent you the Hadith that we are going to study tonight on the different WhatsApp groups. So if everyone can open the WhatsApp and focus upon the Hadith. So basically what I have sent you is the Arabic and the translation. So without taking much more time, inshallah, we will discuss the first Hadith that we have chosen for this course of Hadith. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. عن عمر بن الخطاب رضي الله تعالى عنه قال سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول إنما الأعمال بالنيات وإنما لامرئ ما نوى فمن كانت هجرته إلى الله ورسوله فهجرته إلى الله ورسوله ومن كانت هجرته إلى دنيا يصيبها أو امرأة يتزوجها فهجرته إلى ما هاجر إليه أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام. Translation of the Hadith. It is related by Umar ibn Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala anhu that he heard the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam saying, the actions are but judged according to intentions, and to every man is due what he intended. Thus, whosoever migrates for the sake of Allah and His Messenger, whoever migrates for the sake of Allah and His Messenger, and then in between you will see that there is a slight commentary, and there is no other motive of his migration except compliance with the commands of Allah and the Prophet and winning of the good pleasure of Allah Almighty. Then we come back to the translation. His migration is accounted for the sake of Allah and His Messenger. And then find commentary once again between the two brackets. And doubtlessly he is a true muhajir, immigrant, and shall receive the recompense prescribed for hijrah, migration, towards Allah and His Messenger. Back to the translation of the Hadith. And whosoever migrates for the sake of this world, or to wed a woman, commentary between the two brackets, his migration will not be for Allah and the Prophet. Returning back to the translation, and it will be accounted only for the purpose for which is intended. Or kama qala alayhi salatu wassalam. First of all, this hadith is a muttafaqun alayh hadith. And muttafaqun alayh hadith is that hadith that has been recorded by Imam Bukhari and Imam Muslim. Has been recorded by both. The Islamic terminology used for such a hadith is muttafaqun alayh. And basically muttafaqun alayh means that Imam Bukhari and Imam Muslim rahimahumullah both agree upon the authenticity of the chain. So you will find after the hadith there is two words, Bukhari and Muslim. So you will find this hadith in Bukhari and in Muslim. The hadith is self-explanatory. So if you study the hadith in itself indicates the message. But because the message is so important, the message of this hadith is so important, and because of its importance, we are going to shed further light upon the topic, upon the message. Now, if we were to encapsulate the message is ikhlas, sincerity. This is what the Nabi of Allah has spoken about in this one hadith, sincerity. And basically the scholars have said that if we were to divide the different faculties of Islam, we will divide Islam into three categories. Number 1 is Iman, number 2 is A'mal, and number 3 is Ikhlas. So basically this one hadith, it speaks about 1/3 of the religion. So let me say that again. The religion has been divided into 3 categories. One is Iman, meaning the tenets of faith. Number 2, A'mal, the fuel by which we allow our commute of Iman to move forward. And number 3 is sincerity. So 1/3 of our entire religion basically has been spoken about in this one hadith. And that's why if you study Imam Bukhari's compilation known as Sahih al-Bukhari, the first hadith in Sahih al-Bukhari is this hadith. Imam Baghawi in his Masabi, you will find that this is the first hadith. Ibn al-Mahdi rahimahullah says, and he gives advice to his followers and to his listeners, that whenever you start a Islamic book, it is highly recommended that you start your Islamic book with this one hadith. And he said that in the book, if there are many chapters, each chapter should start with this one hadith. That is the importance of this hadith. And that's why Imam al-Bukhari rahimahullah starts his Sahih al-Bukhari with this hadith. And alhamdulillah, we have chosen this hadith to be the first hadith of our hadith program. So we are following the sunnah of Imam al-Bukhari, Imam al-Baghawi, Ibn al-Mahdi, and many other great scholars of hadith. So we need to shed some light upon the meaning of this hadith. Now basically, if we study the actions of a human being, the actions of a human being are visible. So when a person says something or he does something, it is visible. It can be heard. This hadith indicates that there is something that is even more important than what is visible. And that is that is invisible. And that is known as the niyyah, the intention. So basically, based upon the intention, the deed will be meritorious or non-meritorious, acceptable, non-acceptable. It all revolves around the intention. So if the intention is sound, the amal is sound. And if the intention is not sound, the amal is not sound. So this is basically what the hadith is teaching the listener. Now, Allah sees actions along with intentions. Allah sees the apparent along with the hidden. So when we find ourselves on the other side, Allah Almighty is going to examine the entire package of action. So He's going to examine the external, the outward, and that is the action, and the inward, and that is the intention that is attached to the action. In this world, as we all know, that judgment is based upon the outward, as we will speak about in a few moments. But on the day of judgment, Allah Almighty will examine the intention behind the action. And if the action is in conformity with the standards set by the Nabi of Allah, and the intention is purely to please Allah Almighty, then this action will be accepted. And this action will allow this person to benefit from. Does it make sense? All right. Now, what I have just presented now basically gives us a very important message, and that message is that intention is primary. It is most important. That on the day of judgment, if I can use a simple word, the intention will be the imam and the action will be the muqtadi. I was thinking about this, how to present it, and I said this will be an easy way to present it. That the intention will be the imam and the action will be the muqtadi. In this dunya, the action is the imam, and the intention is in the back seat. So we learn that the intention is very, very important, and many a times even more important than the action. So now a person can use his logic, his intellect, and he can say that Robin Hood was doing the right thing. I use the word Robin Hood, so everyone knows Robin Hood. So he was stealing money from the rich. His intentions were sound and pure, that he was to distribute that money amongst the poor. So he was stealing from the rich, giving to the poor. His intentions were sound. He did not keep that money for himself. But what we learn from this hadith is not the permissibility of allowing a haram to be halal. This is not what we learn from this. We learn that a good action without sound intention can be left impure. The intention does not have the strength to transform impurity to purity. Does it make sense? What the hadith is saying is that if there is an action that is permissible, that is allowed by Allah and the Rasul, the intention can make it impure. So we need to have high intention. Flip side, the intention does not have the strength to transform haram into halal or impurity into purity. Mufti Taqi Usmani Sahib Damat Barakatum, he makes mention in his Malfuzat, in his discourse, that there was a person and he missed his prayers. He missed his prayers. And he had an argument to present for the missing of his prayers. And the argument was that I'm a doctor. If I pray Zohar, Asr, Maghrib, Isha, I am helping myself. But if I miss Zohar, Asr, Maghrib, Isha, I am helping so many. So my intentions are sound. And I believe that if I miss the prayer, Allah will not punish me because I am assisting the family of Allah. Now this understanding of this hadith or this understanding of Islamic teaching is incorrect. This hadith indicates in a very subtle manner, if we dive deep into the words of this hadith, that the intention is very important, that if it is crooked, a good amal known as a'mal salihah will be deemed as a'mal sayyi'ah. And a good deed or a good intention does not have the strength to move a'mal sayyi'ah to the meadows of a'mal salihah, or to transform impurity to purity. Does it make sense? Alright, now the Nabi of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam spoke about the intention in different manners at different occasions, because he did not want any member of his ummah to miss out on reward. Think about it, a person, he does something good, he spends time, he spends wealth, he spends his energy thinking that he is going to be rewarded for that action, and because his intention was not sound, he misses out. Indeed, that person misses out, but at the same time the Nabi of Allah feels very sorry for that person. So Nabi Kareem Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam in different times of his risala spoke about the importance of intention. I'm going to make mention of one hadith. And this hadith has been recorded by Imam Muslim. Imam Muslim. Nabi Kareem Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam says that on the day of judgment, when good and bad will be examined, intentions behind the good and bad will be examined, the entire package will be dissected and examined. On that day, the first group of people that will be summoned by Allah Almighty, called for. Allah will say, "Inko below." So the first person that will be called by Allah Almighty will be a martyr. Now if we study Surah Tawbah, Surah number 9, verse 111, Allah Almighty explicitly, very clearly says, "Inna Allah ashtara min al-mu'minina anfusahum wa amwalahum." And basically, the gist of this is that if you can spend your wealth wherever it needs to be spent to gain the pleasure and the countenance of Allah Almighty, and whenever Allah demands that you give your life and you give your life, then in return to this great endeavor, mujahada, Allah Almighty will give you Jannah. Now, as we know that martyrdom is a very high sacrifice that a person gives. He gives his life to please Allah Almighty. He gives his life to please Allah Almighty. And in Surah Al-Fatiha, what do we say? Ihdina siratal mustaqim. Guide us to the path of those people that you have favored. Siratal ladina an'amta alayhim, that you have favored. And who are those people that Allah has favored? Allah speaks about them in Surah Nisa, Surah number 4, verse number 69. وَمَن يُطِعِ اللَّهَ وَالرَّسُولَ فَأُولَٰئِكَ مَعَ الَّذِينَ أَنْعَمَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِم مِّنَ النَّبِيِّينَ وَالصِّدِّيقِينَ وَالشُّهَدَاءِ. The third category is a martyr. Martyrdom is a very high rank because a person is given a very precious commodity that Allah endowed him with, and that is life. Now this martyr will be presented in front of Allah Almighty. Keep in mind what I said a few moments ago, that the intention can ruin the good action. Intention can ruin the good action. This martyr is presented in front of Allah Almighty, and Allah will remind him of His favors, and He will accept and recognize all those favors. He will say, "Yes, Ya Allah, you did bestow all these favors upon me." Allah will say, "In return, what did you do?" And He will say, "Ya Allah, I gave my life to please you. I became a shaheed, a martyr." Allah Almighty will say, "You're lying. You are lying." Now no one can challenge Allah Almighty. In this world, a person can be challenged. If I say to one person, "You are a liar," and he'll say, "How do you know?" I'll say that I know that you're a liar. What you are saying is not what is in your heart. People say I am foolish, because I don't have a gadget and a gauge by which I can see what is in the heart. But what does Allah Almighty say? In Surah Tariq, Surah number 86, verse number 9. يَوْمَ تُبْلَسْ سَرَائِرُ. Surah 86, verse number 9. يَوْمَ تُبْلَسْ سَرَائِرُ. The day where Allah will examine the secrets. Sara'ir, plural. Examine the secrets. The secret actions and the secret intention behind the action. That may be a secret, that may not be a secret. Sometimes the action is visible, sometimes the action is not visible. So if the action is not visible, it is a secret. And sometimes the action is visible and the intention is non-visible. Allah will examine that as well. يَوْمَ تُبْلَى السَّرَائِرُ وَالسَّمَاءِ ذَاتِ الرَّجْعِ. Everyone is to return back to Allah Almighty. Then He's going to be examined. So this martyr will be thrown headlong into the fire. Headlong into the fire. His martyrdom will not save him. What a beautiful action, but it became rotten because of the intention. Then the second person that will be summoned is a theologian, muhaddith, a mufassir, a alim, a scholar, a teacher of deen, a da'i, propagator of the deen. And Allah Almighty will say, "I gave you all these bounties," and He will say, "Yes, Ya Allah, you did. I recognize all those bounties. I remember those bounties. What did you do in return? I taught your deen." I'd just like to pause there Hazrat Abu Hurairah radiallahu ta'ala, who's a Maulvi Sahab. He was a Maulvi Sahab, like I am, a Maulvi. Because he used to sit and learn the ahadith, and his whole life was relating the hadith. Many a times he used to faint when relating this hadith. He used to faint. Because the second person that will be summoned is a scholar. Now you do not know why I am here. And I don't know why you are here. But apparently, we are here to attain the countenance of Allah Almighty. You may have a very sound intention and I may have a very rotten intention. This sitting for you will be of benefit. And this preaching of mine will be of no benefit. Only Allah knows. So it has been said that the second person is a theologian. And he will be found to have a rotten intention. And Allah Almighty will throw him headlong into the fire of hell. And then the third person is a wealthy person that gives a lot of charity. And basically he will fall short as well, cutting the hadith short. He will fall short as well, and he will be thrown into the fire of hell as well. So basically a martyr who gave his life. Let's skip to number 3. Jump to number 3, the one that gave his wealth. إِنَّ اللَّهَ اشْتَرَى مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ أَنفُسَهُمْ وَأَمْوَالَهُم. Allah Almighty says that if you give your life and your wealth, I give you Jannah. The first one gave his life and the third one gave his wealth. But they didn't make it to Jannah. They were thrown into the fire of hell. And number 2 was a theologian, a scholar. He did not make it into Jannah as well. Now this is the importance of the intention, and that's why this is the first hadith that we are discussing. Now I would like to turn to the Quran, the best book on earth, that gives the best education, best ta'lim. Surah Al-Baqarah is a surah that contains many injunctions. Many injunctions. Hazrat Abu Hurairah, he learnt Surah Al-Baqarah alongside Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq in 8 years. It took them about 8 years to learn this surah. Because there are so many injunctions, so many ordinances, and Allah Almighty demands the practice of them, the inculcation of them in life. So basically each verse that was studied by these noble people, they did not move to the next verse unless that verse was in practice. They did not move on unless that verse was in practice. That's why it took them 8 to 10 years to learn Surah Al-Baqarah. Of course there were hafiz, there were alims, and there were amils of that surah. Nowadays there's many people that are hafiz of the surah and alims of the surah, but you won't find many people that are amil of the surah. Amil is the one that practices the surah. Not many. And if they are, you can count them on your fingers. So the Sahaba, they became hafiz of the surah, alim of the surah, and amil of the surah. Ilm and amal. إِنَّ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. Now Allah Almighty gives the best example of sincerity and insincerity. Sincerity and insincerity. And in 2 verses. So as a reference, keep in mind Surah Al-Baqarah, verse number 264, example of insincerity. And then verse number 265, the following verse, example of sincerity, ikhlas. So let's study verse number 264. What does Allah Almighty say? يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا لَا تُبْطِلُوا صَدَقَاتِكُمْ بِالْمَنِّ وَالْأَذَى. O you who have believed, do not invalidate, render in vain, invalidate your charities with reminders of it or injury as does one, and then Allah Almighty gives the example. كَالَّذِي يُنْفِقُ مَالَهُ رِئَاءَ النَّاسِ وَلَا يُؤْمِنُ بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ فَمَثَلُهُ كَمَثَلِ صَفْوَانٍ عَلَيْهِ تُرَابٌ فأصابه وابل فتركه صلدا لا يقدرون على شيء مما كسبوا والله لا يهدي القوم الكافرين. So Allah Almighty says, do not render your charities in vain. Don't remind the recipient of your charity. Don't harm him and harm his image in the community by speaking about him that he received from me, because by doing this you are going to lose the reward that has already been registered in your account. It is in your account, but you speak ill of him and it will exit. Then Allah Almighty says, you don't be like that person who spends his wealth to be seen by the people. To be seen by the people, and does not believe in Allah and the last day. Now his example, similitude, his example is like that of a smooth stone. Visualize, smooth stone upon which is dust. Let me stop there. Smooth stone, and there's a layer of dust upon that stone. The Mufassirun have commented upon this, and they say that, let's say that dust settles on the smooth stone for 1 or 2 weeks. So in 1 or 2 weeks you start to see blades of grass. Got that in mind? I want you to visualize that. Smooth stone, a layer of dust that has settled on the smooth stone, and because there is dust there, you see blades of grass emerging through the dust. Got that? Now listen to what Allah Almighty says. And now that layer of dust is hit by downpour that leaves it bare. So when the rain falls upon that smooth stone that is covered by dust that resulted in the blades of grass, it is hit by a downpour, by rain. What happens? It is smooth once again, and you don't see the dust and you don't see the grass. They are unable to keep anything of what they have earned, and Allah does not guide the disbelieving people. If a farmer was to cultivate upon that dust, you will call him a madman. So why are you cultivating upon this smooth stone? Because wind will blow it away, and a downpour will make it blow away. Why? Likewise, if a person does an action, he is cultivating on a smooth stone. He is cultivating upon the smooth stone. It is not conducive for cultivation. It is not going to stay. That domain is not going to maintain the harvest. You're going to lose everything. This is what Allah Almighty is saying. So whenever you do something, keep in mind intention should be sound. And that's why Abdullah ibn Mubarak, one of the great scholars, he used to say that if the action is small but the intention is sound, on the day of judgment the action becomes large. And if the action is large and the intention is small, on the day of judgment, the action will become small. Intention will determine the strength and the size of the action. Next verse. Inshallah, about us people, who are people of sincerity. I hope so. Allah Almighty says, وَمَثَلُ الَّذِينَ يُنْفِقُونَ أَمْوَالَهُمْ ابْتِغَاءَ مَرْضَاتِ اللَّهِ وَتَثْبِيتًا مِنْ أَنفُسِهِمْ كَمَثَلِ جَنَّةٍ بِرَبَّةٍ أَصَابَهَا وَابِلٌ فَآتَتْ أُكُلَهَا ضِعْفَيْنِ فَإِنْ لَمْ يُصِبْهَا وَابِلٌ فَضَلَّ اللَّهُ بِمَا تَعْمَلُونَ بَصِيرٌ. And the example of those who spend their wealth seeking means to the approval of Allah. Allah ki raza ke hai. And assuring reward for themselves is like a garden on a high ground, which is hit by a downpour. So it yields its fruits in double, manifold. Not double, manifold. And even if it is not hit by a downpour, then a drizzle is sufficient. And Allah of what you do is seen. So basically the environment that Allah Almighty speaks about in verse number 265 is an environment that is conducive to cultivation. Does it make sense? This is what Allah Almighty is saying. So intention should be sound. Alright. Moving forward. We're going to do a recap in the last 5 minutes of the entire lesson. So that's going to be our order of this lesson, that we're going to speak for about 35 minutes, and then the last 5 minutes there's going to be a recap of what we have spoken about. Now, of course, this world is a visible world. This world is a visible world. And we make assessments based upon the visible. Hazrat Umar radiallahu ta'ala used to say, نحن نحكم بالظاهر والله يتولى السرائر. हम तो हुक्म लगाते हैं जाहिर पर, लेकिन अल्लाह पोशीदा को जानते हैं. That we will make a judgment based upon the zahir, upon the manifest, upon the apparent. Wallahu ya'lamu sarair. But Allah Almighty knows the hidden, and Allah is going to make the judgment based upon the hidden. So we need to, whenever doing an action, we need to have the entire package, the action and the intention, and we will be rewarded for that. Now I'm going to make mention of one more statement from the Nabi of Allah that will further allow us to purify our intentions. Niyatul mu'min khayrun min amal. The Nabi of Allah says that the intention of a believer is better than his action. The niyyah of a believer is better than his action. Now what does that mean? I've said this many a times before, and we've spoken about this in our tafsir programs. One Muslim, whose name is Umar, he lives for 70 years. Right? He lives for 70 years. And he lives as a Muslim and he dies as a Muslim. On the other hand, there's a person by the name of John. He lives for 70 years. He lives as a non-believer and dies as a non-believer. Maliki Yawmiddin, the stand on the Day of Judgment in front of Allah Almighty. And he is rewarded with the gardens of Eden, with Jannah. And Jannah is a life of eternity. And this person, John, is punished. And his punishment is for eternity. Then the question that comes about is, the actions of this person, Zayd or Umar, is limited. The actions of John are limited. It is the day of requital, the day of recompense, the day of judgment, the day of justice. How can a person be rewarded for eternity when his actions are only 70 years? And how can this person be punished for eternity when his evil doings are only 70 years? So once again we turn to this hadith. That basically the intention behind determines the lifespan of that action. Niyyatul mu'min khayrun min amal. That the niyyah will determine how far this action will go. So when a person is on his deathbed and he lived as a Muslim, let's say Umar is on his deathbed and he's dying, and he lived 70 years as a Muslim. When he's dying, he has the intention that if he is to live another 70 years, he will live as a Muslim. So the intention does not allow the amal to die. The intention does not allow the amal, the action, to die. And that's why the reward on the other side is a reward of eternity. And when the person, John, is dying, he dies in the state of disbelief. And it is in his mind that if I am to live another 70 years or 80 years or 100 years, I will live this life. So this intention, that is a very rotten intention, will not allow his bad deed to die. And that's why they say, Niyyatul mu'min khayrun min amal. The niyyah of a believer is better than the action. And secondly, as we all know, the very famous hadith of Bukhari, in which Nabi Kareem said that in the human body, there is a body part, that if that is rotten, the entire body is rotten, and if it is healthy, the entire body is healthy, and ala wa hiya al-qalb, and that is the heart. Actions have a connection with the outward, and intention has a connection with the best part. That's why niyyah, intention, is better than actions. Does it make sense? Alright, now, another question comes to our mind. In Surah Qaf, now Surah Qaf is Surah number 50. Surah Qaf is number 50, in which Allah Almighty speaks about the two angels that are sitting on our right shoulder and sitting on our left shoulder. And they are scribes and they are writing down everything that we do. Now I'm going to read the verses. It is from verse number 16, 17, 18. وَلَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ وَنَعْلَمُ مَا تُوَسْوِسُ بِهِ نَفْسُهُ وَنَحْنُ أَقْرَبُ إِلَيْهِ مِنْ حَبْلِ الْوَرِيدِ إِذْ يَتَلَقَّى الْمُتَلَقِّيَانِ عَنِ الْيَمِينِ وَعَنِ الشِّمَالِ قَعِيدٌ مَا يَلْفِظُ مِنْ قَوْلٍ إِلَّا لَدَيْهِ رَقِيبٌ عَتِيدٌ. Translation of the Son. And we have already created man and know what his soul whispers to him, and we are closer to him than his jugular vein. Verse number 17, when the two receivers, kiraman katibin, recording angels, receive, seated on the right and on the left, he, the man, does not utter any word except that with him is an observer prepared, meaning the kiraman katibin. Now, angels can see like we can see. The strength of their vision, I do not know. I have not read anywhere. Most probably greater than us, but they can see. When we speak, they can hear. When we do something, they can see. But they can't see our intentions. They can't see our intentions. Our intention is known to us and known to Allah Almighty. So Imam al-Ghazali in Ihya al-Ulumuddin, he makes mention that when a person has a sound intention, then there is a fragrance that emits from his body. There is a fragrance that emits from his body. That fragrance is known to the angels. And they will write down that the intention is sound. What is the strength of that fragrance or the intention, they do not know. But they will say this is a good intention. And when a person has a bad intention, there's a stench. And the angels can recognize the stench. They will write down bad intention. Maliki Yawmuddin, on the day of Jannah, Allah Almighty exactly knows the strength of the fragrance and the strength of the stench. And in proportion, Allah will reward, and in proportion, Allah will punish. Does it make sense? So, the intention does not allow the amal to die. May it be a good amal, may it be a bad amal. There is a riwayat, Imam Ibn Kathir has made mention of this riwayat, that on the day of judgment there will be a person that will stand in. We're talking about the niyyah is sometimes better than the action. He will stand on the day of judgment and his a'mal will be presented in front of him in a physical form. Physical form. And he will see a hajj, he will see umrah, he will see the night prayer, the nocturnal prayer, the tahajjud. And he will say that I didn't perform umrah, I didn't perform hajj, I never woke up at night, I didn't pray tahajjud, I prayed fajr but I didn't pray tahajjud. Is this my nama amal? Are these my good deeds? They'll say yes, these are your good deeds. So he will be perplexed. Kaam to maine kiya nahi, I have not done the work, but all this work is in my pile of good deeds. And he will be informed that you had a desire. You had a desire. So when somebody used to go to the airport to go to perform Umrah and Hajj, you did not have the physical ability, the financial ability, and you desired to go. On that desire, Allah gave you the Hajj. Allah gave you the Umrah. You knew that one person prays tahajjud, but he sleeps after Fajr, and you can't sleep after Fajr because you have to go to work, and you knew about it and you said, I hope I had his lifestyle so I can pray tahajjud as well. Allah will give you the tahajjud. The very famous story in the biography of Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal. Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal was a great personality, and it has been made mention that his neighbor was an ironmonger. He was a blacksmith, Luhar. And Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal's sunnah was that after Isha he used to go on the roof and he used to stand in tahajjud the whole night. Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal, tahajjud all night. The blacksmith, when he used to come home after working throughout the day and beating the iron and securing sustenance for his family, he used to come back home and he used to look at Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal. When this blacksmith died, one great theologian of the time saw him in a dream and said that, where do you find yourself nowadays? He said, I find myself amongst the ranks of Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal. So this muhaddith, he was confused. Because Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal was a legend. He was a giant of a personality. So this muhaddith took it upon himself to find out the secret action of this person that allows him to be amongst the ranks of Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal. Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal is a muhaddith, he's a theologian, he's a abid, he's a dhakir, he's everything. And this person is a blacksmith. So he goes to the family, investigates, and she says that nothing much, but two things I have identified in the life of my husband. Number one, he had great respect for the order of Allah. So the muhaddith said, what kind of respect? Said that when he used to raise his hammer to strike the iron, if the muaddin said Allahu Akbar, the hammer used to drop. The respect for the order of Allah. And the second thing is, at night, he used to stare at Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal, who used to stand like a stick on his roof praying tahajjud, and he said, I wish I could pray tahajjud like Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal, but my body does not allow it, and in the morning I have to secure sustenance for my family. So the muhaddith said, most probably on this intention, Allah gave him the rank of Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal. So intention is very, very important. I'm going to conclude by saying, a diamond, a ruby is very small, but very valuable. A stone, let's say a rock, very large, much larger than a ruby and a diamond, but no value. You can make your amal that is small a diamond and a ruby by attaching with it good intention. And you can make your rock and your mountain worthless by attaching with it a rotten intention. A recap of what we studied. The hadith is from which two books? Speak up. Bukhari and Muslim. Muttafaqun alayhi hadith. Who was the Ravi, the narrator of this hadith? Second Khalif of Islam, Umar ibn Khattab. Imam Bukhari starts his compilation with this hadith. I may mention that Imam Baghawi starts his Masabi with this hadith, and Ibn Mahdi has said that you should start every book, especially Islamic book, and every chapter of that book with this hadith, because it allows us to purify our intention before starting. Now, we may mention under this that in this world we assess the person based upon the outward action. We don't have a gadget and a gauge by which we can analyze the inward action, and that is the intention. But on the day of judgment, Allah Almighty is going to examine the entire package, and that is the outward and the inward. And I gave you an example that in this dunya the action is the imam and the intention is the muqtadi. On the day of judgment, the intention is the imam and the action is the muqtadi. Does it make sense? So basically on the day of judgment, يَوْمَ تُبْلَى السَّرَائِرِ, Allah Almighty is going to examine the secrets, and one dimension of examining the secrets is Allah is going to examine the secret intention that lies behind the small or the large action. Is it rotten or is it pure? Then we gave the hadith from Muslim where there were three people that are going to be summoned on the day of judgment. Outwardly, their actions were tremendous. One was a martyr, the second was a theologian, and the third was a person that used to spend, but all three will be thrown headlong into the fire of hell because their intentions were not right. So what we find is that there's an example in the Quran, and we gave the example that basically both people are giving charity. So outwardly they look alike, there's no difference. But because of the intention, there's a great difference, that he is cultivating on a smooth rock, and the other one is cultivating in a domain that is conducive to cultivation. Then we made mention of niyyatul mu'min khayrun min amali, that the niyyah of a believer is much better many a times than the action. And we made mention that the niyyah has a connection with the heart, and the action has a connection with the body parts, and the heart is better than the body parts. Then we made mention that because of the intention, the action never dies. Because of the intention, the action never dies. And that's why a person for limited actions is going to be rewarded with eternity. Alright? May it be good, may it be bad. Then I made mention of a riwayat that Imam Ibn Kathir has made mention that on the day of judgment a person will find Hajj, Umrah, standing in the night in front of Allah Almighty in his pile of good deeds, but he has never ever physically committed to it. So he will be perplexed. He will be informed, this is due to your intention, that you had the intention to perform Hajj, Umrah, spend the night in the ibadah of Allah Almighty. Based upon this sound intention, Allah Almighty rewarded you. Then I gave an example of Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal and his jawar, his neighbor. Basically he was an ironmonger, a blacksmith, and he was found in a dream to be amongst the ranks of Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal. Reason behind it is he had a lot of respect for the order of Allah Almighty. A depiction of that is that the hammer used to fall from his hand, did not go forward or backwards when he used to hear the mu'adhin say Allahu Akbar. And secondly, that when he used to see Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal praying in the night on the roof, he used to desire to be doing exactly the same, but his lifestyle did not allow it. And then we concluded the lesson by giving the example of a diamond and a ruby. It is very, very small, but very, very valuable. And on the other hand, there's a mountain, and with one diamond you can buy many mountains. So the mountain is much larger than the diamond. So our action can be small, but if it has good intention, it will be valuable as a diamond. And if our action is very large like a mountain, but it is devoid of good intention, it will be worthless, it will have no value on the day of judgment. Allah Almighty allow each one of us to purify our intentions, and Allah Almighty allow us to attain His countenance through our actions. We will conclude on a dua. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen wa la'aqibatu lil muttaqeen wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulihil kareem. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين. O Allah, most merciful, most compassionate, most kind, forgive all our shortcomings. Ya Allah, you are our Hadi, guide us to the effort of Iman and Yaqeen. Ya Allah, guide us to the meadows of A'mal and Salihah. Ya Hadi, guide us to all those actions that are pleasing to you. Ya Hadi, guide us away from all those actions that are displeasing to you. Ya Allah, grant each one of us the best of both worlds. Ya Allah, grant us the highest level of success in this life, the highest level of success in the life to come. Ya Allah, we have started this program. Ya Allah, make this program the means of our salvation. Ya Allah, make this program the means of our salvation. Ya Allah, grant us the amal of all that we learn. Ya Allah, make us alim and amil of our deen. Ya Allah, grant us ilm and grant us amal. Ya Allah, grant us ikhlas. Ya Allah, whatever we have asked for tonight or in the past, Ya Allah, grant it qabooliyah. Ya Allah, if it is khair, Ya Allah, grant it to us. Ya Allah, if it does not have khair, Ya Allah, grant us that has khair. Ya Allah, accept all our supplications. Fulfill all our permissible needs. Safeguard us from all kinds and all levels of shar, ibtila, worry, anxiety, failure and sickness. Ya Rabbi irhamhuma kama rabbayani saghira. Ya Ghafir, Ya Ghaffar, Ya Ghafur Rahim. Ighfir lana wa liwalidina wa li jami'i mashaikhina wa li jami'i ahbabina wa li jami'i muslimina wal muslimat wal mu'minina wal mu'minat al ahya'i minhum wal amwat. اللهم ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم وصلى الله تعالى على خير خلقه محمد صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه وأتباعه أجمعين آمين. Whilst I was studying today, there was something that came to my mind. Maybe the keen can take this on board. One hadith per week